would have given it to Tony Smith. Personally, I think he's done a terrific job with the budget that he had. But I think it's difficult to argue that McNamara doesn't deserve it, given how well Catalans have done. I mean, Catalans have got a very good side, but they've had very good sides before. Promised a lot and not delivered, and he's certainly got them playing good rugby consistently well. Also, if you look back over the history, almost always the team that finish with the League Leaders Shield, the coach wins the Coach of the Year award. Not always, but mainly.
Certainly in recent past, the last 3 years, that's what's happened, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's voted for by his fellow coaches. So I don't have a problem with it. If it had been just for me, the David Powell Coach of the Year award, I'd have given it to Tony Smith based on what he's done with Hull KR.
Well, people will get the chance in the SLP awards to sort of vote differently. I think when you actually sit back and take stock, the Tony Smith Hull KR story, they way outperformed expectations. Massive jump up from being 11th last year to being 6th this year, and they entertained us along the way. So I certainly think he would have been a worthy winner if that was the way it would have gone. But you look at McNamara's story this season. He came into this season with a thinner squad than he'd had before, heavily reliant in terms of squad depth on young French players, and boy did those guys perform. Artem Morg, we all love watching Artem Morg. He's probably everyone's favourite player that doesn't play for their team almost in Super League this year. Alex da Costa played at a level that I think is above what I'd ever expected from him. Mikel Gudemond has developed this year after stagnating for a year or so. And, you've got players like Matthew Laguerre, young Chan, young Lecam, who've come in on a handful of occasions each and not looked out of place in Super League, which hasn't always been the case with young French players. They've brought back Jordan Desiree into the fold as well, and he's actually looks like a Super League player now. So I think he's done wonders with that and maintained the consistency to win the League Leaders Shield. So I think it's a fair reward.
No, I agree. I think it's entirely fair, and what you said's right. I don't have a problem with it being McNamara at all. I think he's done a terrific job there, and if Saints hadn't been playing him in the final, I'd have definitely been behind them this weekend. That's for sure.
Jodie Cunningham for Woman of Steel. I think possibly not seen enough this year of the women's game to have a thorough commentary on her over, say, Rudge or Goldthorpe, who I think was, they were the big three this year, possibly going from that short list that we talked about last week. But the narrative around her season, moving into a new position, playing at loose forward, filling in at other positions when she's needed to as well in the halves, or traditionally a fullback as well as a little bit of time as hooker as well. She's done it all for this Saints side. She's led the Saints side really well. I know Rudge is a leader in that side as well, and there's Gaskin, and there's a couple of girls in the pack as well who are very strong. But I think she's led that team really well in that Challenge Cup final when the main playmaker injured herself, celebrated a try, and she stepped back into the half. It was seamless. She ran the show. She was exceptional in that game, and that is the highest attention game, kind of similar to when Courtney Winfield Hill won it a couple of years ago from that performance at Bolton in the cup final. That then sort of translated through to the second half of her season. Jodie Cunningham did the same this year around, so I certainly can't argue with that award. I think it's well deserved, and she's a great ambassador for the game as well. That's a huge thing about Jodie.
Yeah, she speaks very well, doesn't she? Yeah.
And there was just no debate for me. Sam Tompkins was the best player this year. So.
Yeah, no question of
that. Fair enough then. No question on that on the main award. That's for sure. Okay, let's move on to some big breaking news from today. I say breaking, but a lot of what we're going to talk about was kind of an open secret for ages. I think the most surprising thing out of this news that Matty Pete is now called Matt Pete, apparently. Obviously now he's got a grown-up job. He has to drop the Y, get a bit more grown-up in his name. Anyway, England coach Sean Wayne has returned to Wigan in a leadership role as part of a reshuffled backroom team of new head coach Matt Pete, and assistants Sean O'Loughlin and Lee Breers. Wayne led Wigan to 3 Super League titles, a Challenge Cup and a World Club Challenge triumph before his 2018 exit. Having left Wigan to take up a role with Scottish Rugby Union, Wayne returned to Rugby League for the chance to coach his country in February 2020. He will combine his role as England head coach with that of Leadership and Management Director at the Warriors. Pete has replaced Adrian Lamb, whose 3-year reign was brought to a halt at the end of the 2021 season. At 37, he becomes the youngest head coach in Super League. Pete, like Wayne before him, has been nurtured through the ranks and served in practically every department at Wigan before taking on the head coach role from Lamb. Of course, he was head of youth, similar to what Wayne was. He was assistant coach during some successful times, similar to what Wayne was. So there you go. His assistants will be Breers, who has ended a 24-year association with Warrington, and ex-Wigan skipper Sean O'Loughlin. New assistant Breers left Warrington at the end of 2021 following Steve Price's final game in charge before moving to Australia. Assistant coach John Winder will now move on to Wigan's partner company, Competence Development, in support of youth and community rugby league programmes. That's more of a education and community offshoot that partner with the Wigan club and work out of the education centre that's at Robin Park. So he's away from first team affairs, away from the club, but not out of Rugby League, John Winder. So yeah, I don't know what you as a man from the other side of the hill made of this news of Sean Wayne coming back.
Well, certainly wasn't very surprised. I've got, other than yourself, Mark, I do have one or two other Wigan friends around the patch, and they were trailing this to me a month and a half ago, 6 weeks, 7 weeks ago, that this is what was going to happen. I don't know what you think. My other Wigan friends were less than impressed by this as a way forward, and certainly their view was Wayne's a control freak and there's only going to be one head coach at Wigan. It ain't Matt or Matty Pete. It'll be Sean Wayne calling the shots and making everything happen. He apparently used to tell the physios how to carry out a massage. So I'm not quite sure that Matt Pete's going to have a lot of freedom that you would expect a normal head coach to have in Super League. But I'm sure time will tell.
Yeah, I think because it's been such common knowledge for such a long time, and Matty Pete isn't a big name because his playing career was ended at a young age in the amateur ranks and stuff. I don't think anyone should dismiss him as a coach. I think he's highly qualified and highly capable in terms of being deserving of this next step. Maybe I would have thought it's a step too far for him to go into the head coaching position at a club like Wigan if it wasn't for the people that have been putting around him. So I think I'm hoping that's more a support structure than a going to dictate how things are run. I certainly think there's some standards that need improving. One of the more underwhelming things for me was that Wigan have effectively promoted their strength and conditioning coach to be in head of performance, which effectively is the strength and conditioning department from this year, because I think that's an area where we've fallen back on over the last couple of years. I hope and suspect that Wayne will drive standards up in that area, and I think his focus might be more on that sort of stuff than actually what Matty Pete is doing day to day with the first team. That's what I hope and want to see. I do think bringing an outside voice in like Breers does give an opportunity for some new ideas to be put into the mix, as well as Matty Pete implementing his own ideas at the top level, which he won't have had the chance to necessarily do before. I know what you say about Wayne being a control freak, but I also think he's open to ideas and anything that makes things better. So if someone comes to him with something and shows him how they think it can be made better, it can make things better, he's open to those things. He's not just going to say, no, I'm right. So it'll be interesting to see how the dynamic works. But I wouldn't say I'm like excited, but it's hard to be excited about something you've known about or expected, should I say, for so long, if you know what I mean. And when it's an internal promotion within a setup that underwhelmed on the field this year. But Matty Peake's main job as assistant was in the defensive side of the game. One thing you can say is Wigan's defence has not been a problem.
That's been very good. No, absolutely. I mean, by the way, I don't know anything about Sean Wayne, so it wasn't me that thought he was a control freak. It was my Wigan friends who thought he was.
Sean Wayne would admit himself that he is. You know, he struggles to do a job part time, but because it's a different role and he has become I think he has become a different person since he left the head coaching job at Wigan. I think, you know, it's not. I don't think it's going to be just how it was.
I'm pretty sure there'll be a nice spark around the derbies again anyway, Mark. So I've no doubt Sean will get everybody, including the coaching staff, well revved up for playing them lot over the lump come Derby Day next year. So it should be. I'm sure the sparks will fly. It should be good. It should be good fun.
Yeah, well, we might as well roll in the other Wigan news from today as well. That Wigan have confirmed captain Tommy Luluai will play his 12th season with the club in 2021 after signing a new one-year deal. Luluai, who's 36, will he be the oldest player in Super League next year? No,
that's a question.
Maybe, yeah. It'll be close to it, if not. Announced his intention to enter a 12th season and the 20th with Wigan and a 20th in all on Monday night at the club's sponsors awards thing that they did. Luluai has made 315 appearances and won 7 major honours with Wigan in 2 spells. He's also been promised a place on the backroom staff when he hangs up his boots, so he'll be working towards that Matty Peake coaching setup. But Callum Percy, 99, the Wigan drummer, said, "Great player, yeah, or should I say, was a great player. All this does is use salary cap we desperately need, plus using up an overseas gap for a new player. Sorry, Tommy, you have been a legend, but this is another year too far. This just proves to me that Radlinski has no idea how to run a club's playing staff." I think strong words there. It depends what sort of money he's on for me. If he's taking a lower deal on a club-friendly deal to be hopefully, you know, a guiding hand in the playing group, a figurehead in terms of club captaincy, but maybe not a first name on the team sheet type player, then I'm comfortable with him going around another year. I'm disappointed if we haven't found another option to bring into that mix in the halfbacks. I think if Bevan French, for some reason or another, maybe, you know, I'm not saying this is happening or rumoured or anything even, but if he doesn't come back next year, then I don't see a creative spark out of a spine that includes Powell, Luluai and Hardacre. Whereas if Bevan French comes back, then I think Tommy would be a fantastic facilitator for Bevan French to do what Bevan French does, you know. So it's not again, it's not exciting. It's not catastrophic.
I think I'd be with you. It would depend really on how much of how much of the salary cap he's chewing up. He's not the answer to a creative problem, but I've always admired Luluai. I've always enjoyed watching him play. He's always been a feared opponent because he's absolutely committed to the cause. He never ever gives up. He's one of the best defenders I've seen for a man of his size.
Granite shoulders Tommy, best tackler in the league.
He absolutely hits hard. So if he's not getting a huge amount, and he's got terrific experience, I wouldn't have. I'd be happy if he was turning out for my club. I assume Wayne's given this the okay, so I'm sure it won't finish Wigan's business in the half-back department. I'd be surprised if it does.
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if it does. Shall we move on away from Wigan now?
Yes, let's do that. Huddersfield Giants have signed New Zealand hooker Danny Levy from Brisbane Broncos on a 2-year deal. The 25-year-old's made 112 appearances in Australia's NRL, since making his debut for Newcastle Knights in 2015. Levy's also played for Manly Sea Eagles and more recently the Broncos.